Welcome to one of the most unsettling cases ever recorded in American history. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and the exact time you're listening to this story. We're curious to see how far these strange accounts reach and at what hours of the day or night. In the year 1847, on a large cotton plantation just outside Charleston, South Carolina, a chain of events began that would remain hidden in county records for more than 100 years. The Harrington estate, with its white columns and towering oak trees, stood as a proud symbol of Southern wealth. Yet behind its elegant exterior, a deep psychological conflict was growing, one that would ultimately destroy everyone involved. The first unusual note came from Reverend Thomas Whitfield, who wrote in a parish record dated April 23rd, "Young Master Harrington, absent from Sunday service for 6th week. Father claims illness, yet Dr. Dial reports no visits made to the estate." The Harringtons had been part of Charleston society since before the American Revolution. Ebenezer Harrington, a successful merchant-turned-plantation owner, was known for his clever business dealings and his prized collection of rare books. His wife, Elizabeth, had died giving birth to their second child, a daughter who survived only 2 days. This tragedy left their only son, William, as sole heir to the Harrington fortune. William was seen as a serious and intelligent young man educated in the North, who returned home with new, modern ideas that he wisely kept quiet about in polite company. Records from 1846 show that Ebenezer had recently purchased several new workers, including a young woman named Adeline, bought from a struggling plantation in Virginia. County documents describe the Harrington home as a grand 3-story federal-style mansion set back from the Cooper River, surrounded by formal gardens and a separate kitchen house. The property had 14 rooms, and guests often commented on the library for its impressive book collection. The enslaved workers' quarters were located past the gardens, hidden behind a stand of magnolia trees. The usual sounds of plantation life filled the air: horses in the stables, workers in the fields, and church bells from St. Michael's ringing in the distance. But by early spring of 1847, neighbors began to sense something strange in the air around the Harrington place. The first clear sign of trouble came from Ebenezer himself. His business journal showed growing irritation with his son's behavior. "William again absent from dinner," he wrote, "claims reading in his chambers, yet books remain untouched on library shelves." Another note, dated May 5th, read, "Son requests private audience about estate management, suggests ridiculous changes to household order. Education has filled his head with foolish ideas. May require stricter discipline." William Harrington was 23 that spring. His father's expectations were simple: learn the business, run the plantation, and marry well into another Charleston family. At first, society columns mentioned him frequently at balls and dinners with the Pinckneys and the Rutledges. But by March, his name had quietly vanished from such reports. Martha Pinckney, whose diary survives in the Charleston Historical Society, wrote, "Young Mr. Harrington declined invitation again, 3rd time this month. Mother says old Mr. H appears worried but offers no explanation. Household servants noticed changes too." James Green, the stable master, later testified that young William had begun taking long rides alone at dawn, returning with his horse covered in sweat, though he claimed he was simply visiting the far fields. The cook, Esther, who had served the family for years, told the housekeeper that William often came to the kitchen after dark, asking for meals at strange hours. He specifically requested that Adeline deliver them to his chambers. Adeline, according to records, was around 19 years old. She was literate, a rare skill, which made her valuable as a house servant who assisted with guests and correspondence. Church documents show she had been baptized in Virginia, but her parents were listed as unknown. Ebenezer once noted in his ledger, "New girl Adeline, refined appearance and manner, will impress guests. Light complexion suggests long service in household roles. That summer was especially hot in the South Carolina Low Country. The Harrington accounts show large purchases of ice from Charleston to cool the mansion. Ebenezer's journal entries from this period became more disturbed. William refuses Rutledge invitation. Claims headache. Saw him walking in gardens past midnight. Troubling. Items missing from wife's old trunk. Questioned staff. No confession. Finally, on June 12th, Dr. Malcolm Dale was called to the plantation. His medical notes contain a strange line. Summoned to Harrington property, not for young master but for female servant. Signs of nervous collapse. Ordered rest and removal from duties. Mr. H. Sr. visibly distressed. Girl placed in East Wing guest room, most unusual. Throughout the summer, tension on the property worsened. Delivery men reported shouting from behind closed doors. The postmaster noticed an increase in William's letters to northern cities. A visiting tutor mentioned seeing William and Adeline in an intense conversation near the garden wall, breaking apart quickly when spotted. By late July, things reached a breaking point. Church records show Ebenezer meeting privately with Reverend Whitfield several times that month. Soon after, Ebenezer contacted a slave trader in Charleston to arrange Adeline's sale, despite having bought her only a few months earlier. The sale was scheduled for July 28th. On the night of July 27th, something happened at the Harrington estate that would never be fully explained. A dinner had been planned with the Rutledge family, including their eldest daughter, Catherine, long rumored to be a match for William. But the Rutledges never arrived. A message was delivered that afternoon by one of their workers and handed directly to William. He read it, then walked calmly back to the house, requesting to see his father privately. The housekeeper, Mrs. Porter, later said she heard angry voices behind the study door, though she couldn't make out the words. After nearly an hour, William exited pale and quiet, going straight to his room. Dinner went on as planned, though only Ebenezer and William were present. Mrs. Porter described the silence as like a tomb. Adeline served the meal, and witnesses recalled Ebenezer watching her closely while William avoided her gaze completely. Afterward, Ebenezer retired to the library with a decanter of brandy. William announced he had business in Charleston and left on horseback just after dark. He returned close to midnight, stabled his horse himself, and entered through a side door rarely used. Around 2 a.m., Mrs. Porter was awakened by a loud crash. She lit a lamp and followed the noise to the library. Through the half-open door, she saw Ebenezer gripping his desk, trembling, while William stood before him holding a small leather-bound book taken from the open safe. William seemed to be reading aloud in a low voice. Whatever he said made Ebenezer sink slowly into his chair, pale and shaken. Terrified, the housekeeper retreated without being seen. The next morning brought shock. Ebenezer Harrington was found paralyzed in his chair, barely breathing. Dr. Dial recorded the cause as a sudden cerebral event. While the household reeled from the crisis, another discovery was made. Adeline was gone. Her few belongings remained, but she had vanished during the night. William took immediate charge of the estate, managing his father's care and hiring a nurse from Charleston. Ebenezer never recovered his speech or movement and lingered for nearly a year before dying. During that time, William managed the plantation efficiently, impressing even his father's old business partners, yet he never reported Adeline's disappearance or looked for her again. When asked by Reverend Whitfield, he simply said she had likely found her way north. In the months that followed, William became more withdrawn. He refused social gatherings, wrote long letters to contacts in Boston and Philadelphia, and ordered books on property law and European travel. In September, records show he purchased a small house outside Charleston under the name W.H. Trust. Locals later said the house seemed occupied, with lights at night and smoke from the chimney, but no one ever clearly saw who lived there. By early 1848, rumors began to spread throughout Charleston society about William Harrington's increasingly withdrawn behavior. He rarely went to church, avoided the gentlemen's clubs his father once attended, and was often seen riding alone along the Battery in the early mornings, lost in deep thought. Catherine Rutledge, once believed to be his future wife, became engaged to a plantation owner from Georgia. The announcement in the Charleston Mercury politely noted that any previous understandings between her and William had been ended by mutual agreement. Ebenezer Harrington passed away on June 15, 1848, without ever speaking again or leaving his sick room. His funeral was well attended by business partners and local families, though those present described William as distant in his grief. The will was carried out without dispute, leaving everything to William as expected. Within a month of his father's burial, William began selling parts of the family estate, starting with the cotton fields farthest from the main house. Then, in November 1848, something unexpected occurred. William Harrington announced his decision to travel to Europe for an indefinite time. He arranged for his father's old business associate, Richard Dawson, to manage the plantation and gave him limited power of attorney. The house would stay open with only a small staff, supervised by Mrs. Porter during his absence. The Charleston Courier printed a short notice of his departure stating, "Mr. William Harrington, having completed the affairs of his late father, leaves next week for an extended journey across the continent. His return remains uncertain." It mentioned that he would first sail to Liverpool, then continue to Switzerland, whose mountain air was said to be beneficial for both body and spirit. What the newspaper didn't report, but later shipping documents confirmed, was that William booked passage for not only himself, but also for a second traveler listed as Mrs. W. Blue Harrington. No wedding announcement had appeared in any local publication, nor had any minister in Charleston performed such a ceremony. The mystery grew deeper when James, the stable master, recalled that the night before William's departure, a closed carriage arrived at the Harrington estate after dark. The driver stayed by the vehicle while a veiled woman entered the house through a side door. 2 hours later, the carriage left empty, and the next morning William departed for Charleston with 2 large trunks and a smaller case, bringing no servants despite the usual custom for men of his standing traveling abroad. The Harrington estate remained under Dawson's care for 5 years. During that period, William kept irregular correspondence with him, sending letters from various European cities, Geneva, Paris, London, and Vienna. The letters, now preserved in the Charleston Historical Society, deal only with business matters and contain nothing personal apart from formal signatures. In 1853, a letter from Zurich instructed Dawson to sell the remaining properties, convert all holdings into cash, and transfer the funds to a London bank. Dawson followed these instructions, and the Harrington name slowly disappeared from Charleston's social circles. The most fascinating clue came in 1962, when a historian studying antebellum Charleston found a leather-bound journal in the university archives, apparently donated anonymously decades earlier. The journal belonged to Elizabeth Harrington, William's mother, and covered the years from her marriage until shortly before her death. Most entries discussed daily life, household duties, and social gatherings. However, a group of entries from about a year before her passing revealed a shocking secret. Elizabeth wrote that she had discovered papers in her husband's study showing that before their marriage, Ebenezer had fathered a child with an enslaved woman from a nearby plantation. The woman had died giving birth, but the baby girl lived and was raised among the workers there. Elizabeth wrote that Ebenezer had quietly kept track of the child's life through intermediaries and had even sent support from time to time. The girl's name, Elizabeth recorded with sorrow, was Adeline. In her final entry, written just weeks before her death, Elizabeth expressed her torment about this discovery. She said she planned to confront Ebenezer after the birth of their second child and demand that he acknowledge his first daughter and provide for her. The journal ended suddenly, suggesting the confrontation never happened due to her untimely death. This revelation cast the later events in a grim new light. The supposed purchase of Adeline from Virginia seemed to have been a lie, a cover to bring Ebenezer's daughter into his home without revealing her true origin. Her graceful appearance and pale complexion, described in records, took on new meaning in this context. Even more disturbing, the affection that grew between William and Adeline developed without either knowing they were siblings. The book that William found in his father's safe that fateful night was almost certainly Elizabeth's journal. The truth it contained, that the woman he loved was his half-sister, likely caused Ebenezer's fatal stroke and led to the tragic chain of events that followed. The property purchased under the W.H. Trust was probably meant as a safe refuge for Adeline after she left the main house. The veiled woman seen entering the Harrington home before William's departure was very likely her. What happened to them afterward remains uncertain. Swiss records from 1849 list a William Harrison and his wife buying a modest villa near Lake Geneva. British bank documents show regular withdrawals from the Harrington account through a London solicitor until 1876, when the account went inactive. No death records have been found for either William or Adeline under any known name, nor any sign of descendants. The Harrington mansion stood abandoned for nearly a decade before a Philadelphia family, unaware of its history, bought it. It later burned during the Civil War, leaving only stone ruins. Today, the site lies beneath a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Charleston, unmarked and forgotten. The only remaining link to the family's tragedy is that weathered leather journal, preserved in a university archive, its pages filled with secrets that tore one family apart and may have begun another. In 1968, a researcher tracing the couple's fate found an entry in the visitor logs of a small art gallery in Geneva. A painting donated in 1862 by a reclusive pair known as the Americans matched the couple's description. The artwork, still part of the gallery's collection, shows a woman standing beside a garden wall, her face turned slightly away, with a faint image of a three-story house behind her, its white columns hidden in shadow. The painting is titled Memory of Home and signed with the initials A.H. Perhaps some stories never truly end, they only change form. The echoes of the Harrington tragedy continue to linger through time, reminding us how secrets can destroy generations and how love and freedom can drive people to abandon everything they know for the promise of a new beginning. In a quiet Swiss museum, the painting silently watches over visitors who will never guess the American sorrow captured in its colors, while in Charleston, guides lead tourists through historic streets, speaking of old legends but never of the merchant's son who vanished across the ocean with his father's most terrible secret. Dr. Margaret Collins, the historian who uncovered Elizabeth Harrington's journal, spent 7 years piecing together the truth. Her archived notes at the University of South Carolina show a meticulous investigation that led her from Charleston to Philadelphia, London, and finally to Switzerland. There she found Swiss property and church records confirming that William and Adeline, living as the Harrisons, kept their villa until 1873. William was listed simply as a man of independent means, while Adeline was recorded as artist and wife. They were polite but private, their French tinged with an American accent, and they avoided speaking of their life before Switzerland. Among Dr. Collins's discoveries was a note from a local doctor, Henry Beaumont, who treated the couple occasionally. He described Madame Harrison as healthy but burdened by sadness and repeated miscarriages. His records mention that William confessed their inability to have children stemmed from a family circumstance that cannot be overcome. The doctor wrote, "I see deep sorrow behind his calmness." This note hinted that William and Adeline knew of their true blood bond, and that the weight of that knowledge shaped the quiet, tragic life they built far from home. The journal that revealed their shared parentage had given them enough knowledge to understand the biological risks of their relationship. This understanding likely led to their decision to remain childless despite several pregnancies. The Harrisons' life in Switzerland appeared comfortable but quiet. They sometimes traveled to Paris and Vienna, as shown in passport records, but always returned to their lakeside villa. Local documents show that in 1866 they bought land next to their home, expanding their gardens and adding a small studio. Neighbors later told that Adeline painted landscapes and portraits there, some of which were occasionally displayed in local galleries. In 1873, something changed in the Harrisons' lives. Property documents revealed that the villa was sold to a British banker, and after that, the couple vanished from Swiss records. London banking files show a large deposit made to the Harrisons' account that same year, probably from the sale of the villa. Soon after, a new account was opened at a bank in Florence, Italy. Following this lead, Dr. Collins traced them to Tuscany, where she found records of an American couple buying a small olive farm near Florence in early 1874. The buyers were listed as William and Anna Harrison. The description in the property file matched Adeline, an American woman around 46 years old, fair-skinned. It appeared they were seeking even more privacy in this quiet Italian countryside, far away from the world they had left behind. The most moving discovery in Dr. Collins's research came from the records of a small church near their Italian home. In 1876, the parish noted the death of William Harrison, aged 52, from a lung inflammation following a winter illness. His wife Anna arranged for his burial in the churchyard. His gravestone, though worn by time, was still readable when Dr. Collins visited. It carried a simple inscription: William H., born of one world, found peace in another. What happened to Adeline after William's death remains partly hidden. Italian property papers show she kept ownership of the farm for 11 more years, living there alone according to tax records. Local stories collected by Dr. Collins from elderly residents spoke of La Signora Americana, the American widow, a quiet woman who painted and tended her olive trees, sometimes selling small landscapes to visitors from Florence. In 1887, she sold the property to an Italian family, and Anna Harrison disappeared from all official records. However, Dr. Collins uncovered an interesting clue in the archives of a women's boarding house in Rome. A register from November 1887 listed an A. Harrison, an American widow around 60 years old, moving into the residence. The boarding house mainly served gentlewomen of limited means, especially artists and writers seeking inexpensive lodging in the city. From this point, the trail went cold. No death certificate for Anna or Adeline Harrison exists in Roman records. The boarding house documents stop in 1893 when it closed. A final possible trace appeared in passenger lists from ships sailing from Naples to New York in 1890. A Mrs. A. Harrison was recorded among the second-class passengers, listed as 62 years old and last residing in Italy. Whether this woman was Adeline returning to America after more than 40 years away remains uncertain. Dr. Collins's research notes end with a reflection on the limits of historical study. Some people purposely step away from public record, choosing freedom in partial anonymity. The Harrisons, or the Harringtons as they were born, seem to have done exactly that. They left just enough clues to prove their existence, but not enough to fully reveal their inner lives. Perhaps this was their last act of self-control, not only deciding how they would live, but how they would be remembered or forgotten. The mystery might have stayed buried in academic obscurity if not for a strange discovery. In 1965, during renovations of an old brownstone in Boston's Back Bay, workers found a hidden compartment in an attic wall containing a tin box. Inside were several items: a small leather-bound book with blank pages except for the note, "To A from W, remember only what brings peace." There was also a pressed magnolia flower, a daguerreotype of a young man in formal clothes, likely William, and, most importantly, a bundle of letters. The letters, dated between 1891 and 1894, were addressed to "My dearest friend" and signed simply A. They were written from a boarding house in Boston's South End to someone identified only as M, apparently a woman who had befriended the writer. The letters revealed an elderly woman reflecting on her unusual life while being careful not to reveal certain details. In one letter dated February 1892, she wrote, "You ask why I returned to America after so many years abroad. Perhaps it was to complete the circle, to end where I began. Though not in the same place or circumstance, the South holds no appeal. Too many ghosts walk those gardens. But here, where winter grips the city and ice rules the streets, I find comfort. No one looks twice at an old widow who keeps to herself, and that anonymity is its own kind of freedom." Another letter from December that same year makes the clearest reference to her past. "M. Your curiosity about my life before Europe is natural, but cannot be satisfied. Some stories cannot be told even after all their players have left this world. What seems like romance was also tragedy, and what looked like escape was also exile. Know only that I loved a man who gave up everything for me, and I did the same for him. Whatever judgment others might pass, we answered only to our hearts, and that was enough." The final letter in the set, dated April 1894, has the tone of a farewell. She wrote, "My health weakens as the snow melts. The doctor speaks kindly, but his eyes tell another truth. I am not afraid. My life has already gone far beyond what was meant for me, so each day feels like an unexpected gift. The paintings I have given you are my legacy, not for their small artistic worth, but for the memories they hold. The garden wall, the lake at sunset, the olive grove in morning light, each captures a part of a story I could never put into words. There is no record of Adeline's death in Boston City files under the name Harrison, which suggests she might have used a different name in her final years, or perhaps died elsewhere. The brownstone where the letters were found had changed owners many times since the 1890s, making it impossible to learn who M was or how the letters ended up hidden in the wall. The story of the Harringtons, or Harrisons, might have remained forgotten if Dr. Collins had not published a small monograph in 1969 titled Across Boundaries: The Exile of William and Adeline. Though it was only a limited academic release, the work drew attention from a novelist researching antebellum Charleston, who adapted parts of the story into a historical novel published in 1972. While romanticized and fictionalized, the novel brought new interest to the original research and the real people behind it. In 1978, a descendant of Richard Dawson, who had once managed the Harrington plantation during William's absence, found more letters in a family archive. These letters, exchanged between Dawson and William during the early years in Switzerland, revealed that Dawson knew the truth about William and Adeline's relationship. He had helped arrange their escape from Charleston. His actions were guided by a promise he had made to Elizabeth Harrington on her deathbed. She had given him her journal and asked that he protect her children if the truth ever surfaced. The most haunting object tied to this story remains the painting in the Geneva Gallery. Art historians who studied it observed that while the technique showed the work of a skilled amateur rather than a trained artist, its emotional depth was remarkable. The woman's figure, facing away from the plantation house, yet still acknowledging it, captures Adeline's inner conflict. She is both tied to and apart from her birthplace, connected by blood but denied its privileges. Visitors to the gallery, even those unaware of the painting's background, often comment on its sorrowful feeling, a quiet sadness that seems to linger within the image. It conveys something delicate and painful at the same time, preserved in paint and canvas. Without using words, it tells a story of difficult choices, of identities both built and abandoned, and of the cost of love and freedom. The artwork, Memory of Home, stands as both an artistic piece and a historical testimony, proof of lives that might otherwise have been erased by official history. What remains uncertain and may never be known is when William and Adeline learned of their true relationship. Did they find out they were half-siblings before falling in love, or only afterward? Did that knowledge make them resist at first, only to surrender to their feelings later? Or did they come to accept their situation, believing that a society which had already denied Adeline's humanity had no right to judge their hearts? The surviving journals, letters, and records offer no clear answer. But they do show that once they made their choice, they stood by it completely, giving up wealth, position, and country rather than parting from one another. Their self-imposed exile reflected both the strength of their bond and the impossibility of keeping it within the moral boundaries of 19th century America. The story of William and Adeline lives in the shadows of history, pieced together from ship manifests, property papers, medical notes, and personal letters. It challenges simple stories about life on antebellum plantations, hinting at complex truths that official records often hid. More importantly, it shows how individuals could defy rigid social lines, searching for personal truth at great personal cost. In 1982, a final discovery added a quiet ending to their story. A small museum in Boston bought a collection of paintings from a private estate, including several believed to be Adeline's. One unfinished canvas showed two figures walking away along a tree-lined path. Their faces were hidden, but the man's slightly leaning posture and the woman's supporting arm suggested closeness and dependence. In the background, the distant mountains resembled those near Florence. The painting had no title on the frame, but written faintly on the back were three words: "The Path Chosen." By the 1990s, the Harrington story had faded again, remembered only by historians studying antebellum America. Still, it would resurface occasionally, in a footnote on plantation households, a mention in writings about racial identity, or a case study on how fragments of evidence can form a full historical story. Perhaps the most fitting tribute to William and Adeline came in 2005, when the University of South Carolina created a digital archive focused on alternative family structures in antebellum America. The Harrington-Harrison materials became the collection's centerpiece, including Elizabeth's journal, William's business papers, and images of Adeline's paintings. The archive's introduction notes that while their story was unusual, it revealed larger truths about how people navigated and sometimes broke through the rigid boundaries of their time. Today, in quiet archives from Charleston to Geneva, in digital databases, and in the minds of those who read their story, William and Adeline live on, not as distant historical curiosities, but as real human beings who made hard choices under impossible circumstances. Their story reminds us that behind every broad movement in history lie personal lives filled with contradictions, courage, and longing that written records can never fully capture. The sound of their footsteps along the Swiss lakes and Tuscan groves has long faded. The hands that wrote those letters and painted those scenes have turned to dust. Yet something vital endures, the testimony of two people who chose to define themselves rather than be defined by others, who found love and meaning across boundaries built to keep them apart. In that legacy lies both their sorrow and their triumph.